started writing screenplays in January of 1999. I have since written more than 30 scripts and started about 5 others. One day I'll tell you all about them, but for now, here's what you need to know. A third of them are really good. Another third of them need a lot of work, and the last third suck, the big one. Now, the great thing about having written that many screenplays is that along the way, I actually learned how to write a solid script, which means that now I can go back to 2/3 of my scripts and probably make them good, sellable projects. And that makes my bank account and me very, very happy. That's the beauty of being a serial writer. You're always on the prowl for good stories, which means that you can always come up with something to write. There are people who have been on this journey for years, like me, but who've only written maybe 1 script. Why? Well, there are probably a number of reasons. One, they've convinced themselves that in order to finish their script, that it has to be good, or worse, that it has to be perfect, whatever that is. See, I don't subscribe to that line of thinking. I knew while I was writing a few of those 30 screenplays that they were lousy, but I didn't care because I think it's better to have written than not to have written at all. Let me say that again. It's better, as someone famous said, to have written than not to have written at all. So I write without judgment. Judgment keeps you on a writing pace of a script a year, and in my world, that is not acceptable. If everything I wrote had to be good, I wouldn't have learned the things I've learned about good screenwriting. In a recent class, I said, everything I've learned about becoming a good screenwriter, I learned from writing bad scripts. How else was I going to learn what not to do, okay? So if you're sitting there thinking that you need to write something magical, that you got to write something brilliant your first time out, you don't. All you need to do is write. That alone is good enough. There will be plenty of time for you to be good at it. For now, like Nike said, just do it, baby, okay? I am a self-taught writer with a journalism background who loved movies before I ever figured out that I wanted to be a screenwriter. I have never had the desire to go to film school, not because I don't think it's valuable. I just don't think it's necessary. And I've learned not to do things, especially as they relate to writing, that aren't necessary, all right? What's more important than my love of movies, though, is my love for learning. I have learned a lot about what constitutes good screenwriting by just talking to people and reading the work of good screenwriters, of great screenwriters, William Broyles Jr., Callie Curry, and M. Night Shyamalan, to name a few. I don't claim to have all the answers to your questions, and I certainly won't cure all of the writing ills in the world in this book, but I've worked very hard to become a good writer, and I'm finally on the brink of selling my first script. So I know what you may be going through right now, okay? I got a great feeling for what you may be experiencing in your career right now. And while I believe in everything that I put in this audiobook, I offer no guarantees for anyone but myself because I know what has worked for me. And I believe these tools will be useful and they will be powerful in your life as well. I wish I could guarantee you that you'll become a great screenwriter after reading my book or listening to my audiobook as you are right now, but only you can control that. However, I do guarantee that you'll be challenged to look at your writing in a different way. I believe that you'll be introduced to essential tools to walk away with, and that you'll be able to write a competent first screenplay or competent early screenplay, provided you work really, really hard at it. And finally, I am super confident that by indulging yourself for the next few hours, that you'll certainly learn some unconventional strategies that will accelerate your learning curve and put you on the fast track to becoming a skillful and insightful screenwriter who can one day add paid to that list of descriptors. Keep writing, and let's get started. So here's what you're going to learn in this audiobook. This book is your first stop to becoming a competent creative screenwriter. It is the jumping off spot, not the end of the destination. That journey, I pray, will lead you to many, many joyful collaborations with other writers, additional books and classes with me, exciting discoveries in the most unlikely places, and finally, a credit on the small and or big screen. Okay? So you will learn the basics of writing a script. In many ways, writing an intermediate or advanced script writing book would have been much easier for me at this point in my career because there are so many exciting techniques that I've learned recently that have elevated my writing, and I can't wait to share those with you in other books. But even in saying that, I have to say that this book, I feel, will be one of my most treasured literary projects because it's about the foundation of becoming a good writer, which I feel is critical. Now, had I been fortunate to find a book like this one when I started writing, perhaps I would have sold a script by now. But I'm not whining. I'm 5 years into my writing career, and I just had a commercial script hit the marketplace, hit the spec marketplace 2 weeks ago, so it's all good in my world, all right? My advice to you is to be patient with your writing. Don't let your ego make you think that you're more advanced than you are today, okay? That could prove to be a fatal mistake. Just enjoy being new. There's so much beauty in not knowing how to do something, and even more beauty in learning how to master the foundations that are essential to becoming great at anything. So sit back and luxuriate in learning how to set up the all-important foundations of writing a killer screenplay. All right, so here's what you will not learn. This is a snapshot of what you will not learn in this time with me. Even if you are the most brilliant architect in the world or the most ingenious computer engineer on the planet, you must still learn how to write a basic screenplay if you expect to become a decent writer, okay? So here's a sample of the topics that I will not cover in these pages, but I will cover them in another product. So get your wallet out and buy that. All right, so here's what I won't be covering. In-depth discussion of subtext, exposition, and backstory. I won't be talking about how to develop a killer Act 2. We'll not talk about how to weave trickery and other elements into your story. I won't talk about how to write a story in a nonlinear fashion. I will not get into how to effectively build tension throughout your script or how to adapt a news story or a book to a screenplay. Not going to talk about any of that. Now, those are all important topics. They are simply not the priority at this stage in your screenwriting career. See, the problem with a lot of writers I coach or teach is that they want to move really, really quickly. And what happens is that they don't master the basics before trying to tackle the more advanced stuff. So trust me on this. Learn the rudimentary areas first, and the more advanced techniques will be there when you're ready. All right, a word about screenwriting. If I've heard it once, I've heard it 100 times. I want to be a screenwriter. And my answer is always the same. So be one. Write a screenplay. You're a screenwriter. But what most of us mean when we proclaim that we want to be screenwriters is that we want to be a paid screenwriter. And can you blame us? It takes a lot of blood and guts to write a good screenplay. And you might as well be paid for the sweat and tears and Prozac that you put into the journey, right? I thought long and hard about what I'd call this book. This is my first book about screenwriting, and I decided that rather than trying to come up with something clever to trick you into thinking that you're more advanced than you are, I'd appeal to the masses of people who have not succumbed to the seduction of the ego and who want to write a good screenplay their first time out. All right, so here we are. Screenwriting for Newbies is for anyone who's never written a screenplay but who thinks he or she can. This book's also for the writer who actually has written a screenplay but who knows in reality it's not very good. And the last, for that poor, disillusioned scribe who parades around at screenwriting conferences, lurks in the shadows of online classes, and pretends to know what he or she is doing but really doesn't. This book's for you too, buddy, all right? Now, let me tell you why I wrote this book. Like most of the books I've written, I saw a gap in the system. I saw a need that wasn't being met, and I went for it. There are some mighty fine books. I sound like my father. There are some mighty fine books out there about screenwriting, but I've yet to find one that truly targets brand spanking new screenwriters. Even the Screenwriting for Dummies book seemed too advanced for the ultra virgin scribes. One of the reasons that there's never really been a book for beginners is because screenwriting is a weird animal. It's hard to explain and even more difficult to dissect. I think that's the reason most beginning screenwriters lose steam early on in their careers. Most of us stumble into the bookstore and pick up the most advanced book we can find because even though we don't know the first thing about story or structure, we believe we can pull it off. We think that by picking up a copy of advanced screenwriting that we will somehow become advanced screenwriters. But it doesn't work that way, does it? In reality, it takes a long time to become really good at this kind of writing. It took me 2.5 years to actually know what I was doing from beginning to end of a script. The first script I wrote got great feedback, but I really didn't know what I was doing. I just had a sense of story. I had a sense of pacing. But as far as structure went, I really didn't have a clue. And I wrote that script after reading Sid Field's whatever his book's called. I studied it, highlighted it, reread it, and re-highlighted it, and I was ready to go. I bought the customary overpriced script